What's good, Savages? Welcome to another episode of Blue Collar Sports. I'm Savage Paulson, and with me, as always, is the Jim Thorpe of Sports Talk because he's a man of many talent. Zach McGibbon, how are you?
Oh, I was not expecting Jim Thorpe to be mentioned here. Let's go. Now, I miss this, Stefan. I miss these intros because I never know what's going to pop up, what's going to be said, who is going to be mentioned. And so that just gets me fired up each and every time we do an episode.
I will say this, it's starting to become a source of pressure on me to come up with something every single week. To be honest, I was doing the dishes like 20 minutes ago. I was rushing through getting the dishes finished before we record the episode. And I was like, oh man, I got to come up with something. I'm like, oh, and my brain just starts walking. I was like, okay. And then I came up with it. I'm like, you know what? I didn't know who I was going to say, but I'm like, give me somebody that their nickname is the man of many talent. And then ChatGPT just said Jim Thorpe, former, I think he played all major sports. He won Olympic gold, played NFL, played some basketball, played in the major leagues, like many talents, definitely many talents. So definitely you remind me of him because you've been busy. You do so many different things. I'm also been busy. We haven't recorded it's been 2 weeks now since our last episode.
Yeah, I think about 2 weeks. It's just been busy because in my case, it has been the Buckland Cup playoffs we're right in the midst of it, and second round is coming up, and so I've been doing that. Then I've had some wrestling bookings come up as well, and a little bit of everything, and of course work as well. So it has just been busy over the last little bit, but I'm glad we were able to get some time here as we record, and a lot happening in the world of sports as well. It's a busy time all around, I say.
Definitely busy. There's so many things we could have talked about that I could put on could have put on the sheet for this episode. Last week, a lot of things going on with the free agency and the NFL. I mean, it's kind of past news now, unfortunately. I'm sure everybody's tired a bit of everything, all the Max Crosby and everything that happened with everything. But we got a lot of things to talk about, including, let's start off with the WBC. Last night, we saw the World Baseball Classic end when Venezuela defeated the U.S. in the championship match 3-2. Suarez with a go-ahead double in the top of the ninth to give Venezuela a 3-2 victory. Great game. I watched a lot of the baseball during their World Baseball Classic. Kind of gets me primed up for the season that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a clip that played, and of course, as I'm trying to get through, of course, you have the autoplay that plays, right, as going through. So just ignore my end, and you keep going. Don't let me throw you off here.
It reminds me, sometimes my wife is on a couch late at night, and we're just kind of winding down, and she's on her phone just scrolling, just kind of like doing absolutely nothing. And sometimes she'll click on a video, and for some reason the volume is like at plus 18 and it wakes up everybody. She's like, oh my God. And then you panic, and then you can't take it off. You're like, I don't know what's going on.
The house starts rattling and you're like, oh my God, what's going on?
Daughter wakes up like, what's going on? All in panic. There's definitely it was definitely a good prime to get me ready for the season, for the major leagues that are coming up. I know there's a lot of baseball going on, including with the WBC, but we saw some good baseball. And to be honest, like, I saw a lot of big surprises. One of the biggest surprises for me was obviously Japan losing in the quarterfinals to Venezuela, that ended up winning the championship. But still, to me, I had predicted a Japan-U.S. rematch from 2023. I thought Japan was strong. I knew Team USA was strong. But as I started watching more of the round robins, I noticed that there were certain teams I was like, oh man, I didn't realize that so-and-so was playing for this team. And Venezuela was one of those teams. I mean, they were a strong team. I think a team that kind of flew under the radar for me anyway. I didn't really expect Venezuela to be in the championship picture come the championship game, but there they were, defeated Japan, then defeated all these great teams on their way to a championship. And then on the other side, you have Team USA that everybody thought they were just primed to win. You know, on 2023, we all know what happened, lost to Japan in a really close game. Same thing we had here. Venezuela and Team USA played in a very good, tight game, close game. A lot of things to talk about as far as the tournament went on, but what were your thoughts on the championship game as you saw Venezuela defeat Team USA to win the WBC championship? Oh.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, in terms of the World Baseball Classic, it was a lot of twists and turns in this tournament, and for me, it was trying to get adjusted to the different qualifiers, the way the teams can advance. It's like they have to earn this many runs in this many innings, and then this team advances. But if this goes this amount of innings with this amount of runs, then this team advances, right? And so it started to turn a little bit for me where I'm pulling out the calculator, I'm getting the glasses on. It's like, all right, I'm going to try and tabulate this here a little bit. Because it is a very unique format in terms of how they get that put together. I'm not exactly a mathematician over here myself, so it's already, a challenge for me. But yeah, I thought, I was going in, it's like, all right, it's probably gonna be Japan and the United States again, and just kind of playing off of that history. But like what you said, when in the quarterfinals they lost, I was very surprised. I was like, I thought that was a heavy favorite to get into the final with a team that was stacked for Japan. The way that the United States was looking, and we'll talk about that team too in a moment, but with the way that the United States was looking and the whole controversy about, it's bad enough if I don't really know what the how things work in terms of qualifying or whatnot.
Right.
It's another thing when the manager for the American team doesn't know. No matter what he says, I'm pretty confident that he thought that he was going through after Italy, but realized, oh, we have to win this game against Italy in order to qualify through. But that's a whole different thing. But the final itself with Venezuela, I thought it was a really fun baseball game. It's what we've learned over the last little bit is, man, when it's country versus country, it just brings out this different level in a lot of these players. Like, oh, I'm representing my country. In this case, it's Venezuela representing and United States representing. It's really cool to see that, and you see the players kind of step up to the plate, no pun intended, on that. So. Yeah, it was great. I thought it was a really fun baseball game. As you mentioned, Suarez being able to bat in the double at the top of the ninth, take the 3-2 lead. I thought it was a really fun baseball game, and it continues. I think the World Baseball Classic really has sort of elevated a lot in terms of status, because for me, at least, just from casually following baseball in the 2000s, 2010s, I was aware of the World Baseball Classic, but it was never something that I had my eyes fully attentive to for me personally. It feels like something that's kind of increased in popularity since maybe the late 2010s to now, where now all of a sudden, like, everybody's eyes are on the World Baseball Classic.
I think you're absolutely right, because I was watching highlights of old World Baseball Classics, and I'm like, I don't ever remember paying attention to the WBC before 2023, and I've been watching baseball for a long time. I'm sure I've randomly watched some games when it was going on, and like I said, in the 2000s, and but late, like maybe 2000 and I forget, but maybe a few games. But to really pay attention like I did in 2023, I think obviously there might be more names that attach themselves to it. Like when you have a guy like Shohei Ohtani, and last 2023, I also had Mike Trout, and it was a big storyline, teammates versus each other. And same thing this year. Like there's so many, the best of the best, right? And I think what helped it this time around was, we just saw it with in hockey with the Four Nations last year, and how much attention and how much you saw. Like, I think I make reference to what you just said. I think you see something different from these players when they're playing for their country versus when they're playing for their team. Because when you're watching hockey players play a regular season game and then you watch them play playoff hockey, there's a difference. There's an intensity. It means a lot more. You worked this hard to make the playoffs, and now it means something. You're fighting for the Stanley Cup. But then we saw with the Four Nations on how much it meant for so many of these guys. And then you just go through the Olympics a few weeks ago where we saw it again. And now it's kind of the same thing, but with baseball, I think a lot of eyes just kept stuck. They were like, can Team USA just keep racking up the medals and keep winning these championships? And a lot of people, I think, were rooting against the US just because of that. They didn't want to see US win again. I know my wife was she's like, I don't want to see him win anything anymore. I'm like, I just want to see them lose. She was so happy when Venezuela won. I'm just happy that I get to watch greatness all together. I think it was the same experience I had when I was watching the Olympics versus when I watched just a regular season NHL game versus when I watch Olympic hockey. The speed of the game, the intensity, everything, just the talent that you have on the ice all at once on the defensive side and on the offense. And I think the WBC was exactly that. You had all this offense, but you also had these defensive plays. We saw Julio Rodriguez in the semifinals take a home run away from Aaron Judge. And we saw Aaron Judge also make great defensive plays to catch some guys at third, and Bobby Witt Jr. with some great defensive plays at shortstop, and Machado back-to-back similar plays to throw, like so many of these highlight reel defensive plays. And that's what you get when you get the best of the best on the field at the same time. And it makes you appreciate the game, and it makes you appreciate how much talent is actually required to play the game at that level. And it just makes me love the game even more when I see that. So I really tried to pay as much attention. I will say this, though. I was a bit disappointed in the officiating. I felt like it wasn't at the same standard that you see in the major leagues. Now, I don't know of all the names and all the umpires that were hired to do the WBC, and I'm assuming most of them are MLB umpires, but there was some controversy. If you watch the Dominican game versus Team US in the semifinals, a lot of people argue, and it's not hard to make the argument that that last pitch was definitely a ball. It was low in the zone, 3-2. That's got to be a ball. There's a guy on third. You can't take that away. But at the end of the day, we probably won't see that in the next WBC. They're going to have the robo umps, and everything is just going to be like, you're going to see a lot of this in the next WBC. A lot of people, arguing the calls and asking for a review. So that's going to change the game. We've already seen it at the major league level during preseason. I think it's good for the game, but I also think it takes away from like I don't know, maybe the flow of the game. If you stop the game too often, sometimes it could just kill the flow. I know he does that in the NFL sometimes with all these reviews and play stop just so I could review if there was a catch or not. It drives me crazy sometimes. But except for the strike zone issues that I saw, I really, really enjoyed the World Baseball Classic. And, no matter who won, I didn't really have a favorite. Obviously, being Canadian, I was happy that they made it to the quarterfinals, but I wasn't under any illusions that they were going to make it to the finals and win the championship. I knew that there were so many other teams that were just stronger. And but fun times, like you said, it's very fun to watch and gets me all primed up, for the baseball season that's coming up. So that's fun.
Yeah, you weren't thinking that Canada was going to run it back. It's like, all right, they may have taken our hockey, but we'll take their baseball right back.
Listen,
we're going to come in.
When I saw they were facing Team US in the quarters, I was like, all right, this is kind of written in the stars. But I'm like, there's no part of me that could just go there. There's part of me that wanted to see the upset. Like, can you imagine Canada beating US in the quarterfinals? And then it just, I don't care if they lost in the semifinals after that. I'd be like, oh my God, this is great. No Team US. Right. But then you go, wait a minute, Japan lost in the quarter. So can you imagine no USA, no Japan in the rest of the tournament? I think you would I don't know if you would have lost a lot of eyes on the game, but the two favorites gone, but we didn't get that. Canada played a good game, though. They had a strong team. I was really, really happy they battled. I watched a few of their games, and they battled from the first to the last inning. They didn't give up, and they had some good pitching and some good offense. So I was happy. But again, no surprises here. Made it to the quarterfinals. I'm happy. I think it's a good accomplishment for Baseball Canada. I think it's growing. The sport is definitely growing. As someone that's involved in the sport and seeing all these young athletes, because my son plays baseball and all that, and I'm seeing a lot more of these baseball players from here in Quebec, but also in Canada in general, getting all these these deals to go play college ball in the state, and it shows you that the sport is progressing here in Canada, even though we can't play it year round. There's a lot of programs, a lot of school programs and stuff that include baseball, and it helps the game grow here in Canada, and we're producing more and more great baseball players that we're going to see at college level, and some that'll make the pros. I think you're starting to see a lot more Canadians getting a chance at the big leagues, and that's a great thing. And tournaments like the WBC definitely help bring eyes to the game and help pique the interest of someone young that might go, oh, I remember watching the WBC when I was 5 years old, and I fell in love with the game, and then just started playing the game of baseball, right?
Yeah.
Many stories like that.
It's interesting because it's like I've just been scrolling back and forth and comparing the 2006 Canada baseball team compared to the 2026 Canada baseball team. That's funny because it's like I recognize a couple of these players. It felt like the 2006 team had a lot more star power, at least in terms of recognizable names. Like right away, I see Eric Bedard. I remember him pitching for the Baltimore Orioles. I remember Jeff Francis. Obviously, Justin Morneau, probably one of the better Canadian baseball players. Matt Stairs was in the final years of his career there, and Jason Bay. So there's players here that I recognize, but it's funny because with that Canada team we saw in the World Baseball Classic this year, while I don't think that there was as much of the name value players where you could go on the street and say, oh, did you see what Josh Naylor did? I think he's probably out of all the players, he's probably the most recognizable Canadian out of all of them.
Yeah, him and his
honestly,
brother,
their coaching staff. Honestly, their coaching staff is probably more recognizable because Justin Morneau's on that, and Russell Martin's on that squad too, and like, and so it's tough on that sense, but they were just a well-oiled machine, and they came in and they were competing hard. And there's obviously, there's players on that squad that play in major league clubs. Cal Quantrill played pretty well on the pitching side of things. So, so I thought that was fascinating to see kind of the growth of the Canadian team and how far it was able to get to, and that they competed against the U.S. I think people going in, it's like, oh, this is a nice run. Like, I think deep down, people were like, oh, this is a nice run. But the Americans, like, look at all this talent that they have. They'll probably, like, cream Canada. But they really didn't. It wasn't like a blowaway. And I think that in of itself, in terms of inspiring some hope into the program, again, people be like, oh, the Canadian baseball squad, like, like you mentioned, there's the kid that's like, oh, if you're like built up into the rivalries, like, I want to beat the United States. I want to go out there and beat Aaron Judge. So I'm going to get into baseball and whatnot. That could be a motivator too. So it was good to see Canada do well, all things considering, when it came to the World Baseball Classic. I want to go back to that umpiring because it was definitely the strike zone. I don't know what the strike zone was in a lot of those games. There was the one chart, I think it was for that final out between Venezuela and the state, or not Venezuela and the States.
Dominican and the States.
The Dominican and the States. And they just showed that ball strike pattern. Yeah. And it was like all the strikes were outside of the zone and all the balls were inside of the zone. And you're like, how did this happen? Like, how is it called that way? Like, it'd be one thing if it was like hitting the edge and it's like a gimme 50-50, called it a ball when it could be a strike. But these ones were just so blatant, and it was.
I noticed
it's something with the system that I'm sure will get, hashed out. I've been liking it from some of the spring training games I've seen. because it's not like stop the whole game, look at everything.
Right.
It's pretty quick. Like they do the tap on the head. It's like, all right, we'll take another look. We'll go through our camera. They show it. It's like, oh, that's a strike.
Right.
We go back to the game, as opposed to like what you mentioned, the NFL. We got to stop everything. Referee has to run off the field, look into the iPad or look into the little box or whatever.
They do the same thing in the NBA, and it slows the game down so much. They're like, they all convene at the table, and then they all look at the screen, and then you're like, oh my God. Like, even if it only takes 3 minutes, you do that 5 times a game, now you're 15 minutes that you'll never get back. And plus it slows down the game. I think I think they call the ABS or whatever the system for the strike. It's pretty simple. Look, it's already the call has already been made digitally, right? They just have to. It's basically for TV. Like, here it is, and they tell you how many centimeters or how many inches. Like, I think the ball that got called a strike for the last pitch, I believe, was 4 inches off the strike zone. That's the width of 2 baseballs. Right. And here's the thing about that game. I watched the whole game, and in the middle of the game, I started noticing that the because sometimes, look, I don't care that he called it a strike if he called it a strike the whole game. Right. Here's the thing. The thing with baseball, I've been involved in baseball long enough, is I don't give a shit what your strike zone is, as long as it's consistent from the beginning of the game to the start of the game. Don't go ahead. Don't go changing that strike zone mid-game because for whatever reason. And it rarely happens. Normally, if you get a guy that likes them low and calls the strike low in the zone and sometimes on the edge, all right, we adjust. You, as a baseball player, you adjust, and you see them ask the ump all the time, right? I don't know if people that might not watch baseball a lot, but if you pay attention, a lot of the times if there's a ball low in the zone or high in the zone or inside, outside, you'll see the batters go like, was that inside? Was that in? Or even when they're fouling off the ball, they'll ask, like, was that a strike? And the ump will always say, yes, that was a strike. Or he'll confirm that was low, that was low. Now, if you're asking the ump, was that low? Yeah, and he says it was right at the bottom of the zone, that's why I called it a strike. And then the next pitch, he throws it in the same position and then calls it a ball. Right. Now you're fucked excuse my French, but you're effed because now you're like, what am I swinging at here? And that's exactly what happened. There was an at-bat, I think, with Vladdy, and he got called a ball. He got called a strike low in the zone. And Vladdy wasn't happy. I believe it was Vladdy, and he asked him, and the ump said it was at the bottom of the zone. And then a batter later, same exact pitch. I think like 3 pitches later at the next at-bat, called it a ball. And that's when I noticed, I'm like, okay, he's not consistent in his strike zone. Either he's making up calls because he knows he messed up. And when I saw the last pitch of the game, I'm like, yeah. I said that completely fudged that one up. I said, and unfortunately, it's an inconsistency from the ump. He just had a bad game. Sometimes it happens. Unfortunately, it came to the expense. I don't think it came to the expense of the Dominican. I'm not sure that it would have won. It doesn't mean that it would have won the game if we had better umping. I'm not willing to make that leap because there's other factors as well. But it definitely didn't help because most of the bad strike zone calls were against the Dominican if you watch that game. So there's an argument to be made, but at the end of the day, it's baseball. It's been part of the game forever. It's been like that. So you move on, and then that's it. Then in a week from now, when everybody's back on their team and everybody's back to normal, people won't talk about it. Maybe they will, but it's not important. We had a great tournament. It was fun. So I'm all primed up now for baseball and with the MLB to come back and get to see who's gonna ball out this year. So I'm sure we'll get to talk about it in the next upcoming week as we get closer to the regular season. We're going to talk a lot of baseball and try to give our prediction for like we did last year for the MVP and who's going to win and who's going to finish first in every division. And I'd be curious to know if I don't know if we ever verified how good we did last year. I tried. I think this year what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write it down and keep it for the end of the year so that we see, because we didn't do that last year and I kind of regretted it. I remember at the end of the year, I'm like, I think I picked the Tigers to win. I think I was right. I think I was mostly right, but sometimes
I remember picking Paul Skeens to win the Cy Young, so I was pretty happy about that.
I think
I was like, okay, I know it was the easy pick, but I'm like, sometimes when a guy's that good, you just got to take the layup where it comes, right?
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, I was 100% perfect, and I can't wait to maintain that record. 1,000 batting average over here. Congratulations to me.
Before we move on to our rapid fire questions, I just want to thank everybody that's been listening to the Blue Collar Sports, everybody that's subscribed to the podcast. If you haven't done so yet, don't forget, check it out. We're available on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, also on YouTube at SVG TV. Go hit that subscribe button. Help us out. It means a lot. The more followers we get, the more visibility we get for the podcast. It helps us out a lot. Plus, you'll never miss another episode of Blue Collar Sports, which is a plus for you because we're amazing. We're great. And we try our best.
Going back to this. Yeah, we're so good.
We're so good.
We're so good at this.
We're probably wrong on about 80% of our takes, but it doesn't matter because we're having fun.
Validate that. We don't have to validate that. We were right in the moment. We were right in the moment.
If we started paying attention to everything we said that was right or wrong, I mean,
that's right.
Yeah, like, come on. No one.
Well, we know that there's some people that lurk around on social media that will point out when we're wrong. So there are people that will keep us accountable. Some will straight up say, stop podcasting altogether. So you just got to prepare for that when it comes.
If I'm in the mindset of, if you have haters, you're doing something right.
That's right.
That's all. So the more haters this podcast can get, the more, in my opinion, that means the more views and the more listens we get. Let's get into some rapid fire. We're going to have some NHL rapid fire, some NFL, and some NBA, actually. We're going to talk a little bit of NBA. We don't talk a lot about NBA here on Blue Collar Sport, but, the NBA is the regular season is getting towards the end, and there's been some crazy news in the recent weeks. So we'll talk a little bit about the NBA. Let's start with the NHL. Some bad news for the Oilers. Draisaitl out for the regular season. So I'm going to ask you this, Zach McGibbon. Can the Oilers keep it together without Draisaitl?
I think they can. It is going to be interesting because I look at that Pacific Division. The way that they do playoffs is very weird in the NHL ever since they switched to a more divisional matchup where you got to be the top 3 in your division and then you got to fill out the wild card afterwards. Yeah. And I could do a whole episode about this system that the NHL has put in because I don't like it.
It's weird. It's definitely...
It's a very weird system. It's supposed to be similar to like what you see in the NFL where it relies on your division to get you through.
Right.
But
the divisions are just too big. They're too big. Divisions.
It's like they don't face off again within their division that much, and it's like it's like you look at this as like anyways, it's a whole other rant for another day. I'm gonna save that one for a future episode because I know one of the topics I'll probably bring it up too. But in the case of the Oilers, right now when it comes to the Pacific Division, they're tied for first with Anaheim in their division, but it's weird because they're tied with 77 points. To just kind of give it in perspective, the Ottawa Senators are on the outside looking in the East on a wild card. They're a few points back from a wild card spot, and they also have 77 points.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it's going right now in terms of this system. I think they'll be able to maintain it. The team that's behind the Oilers are the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights are a very weird hockey team. They don't win against playoff contending teams, but they do win against everybody else. And you look at their overtime losses, it's the most in the NHL, or actually it's most behind Pittsburgh, second most with 14.
Yeah,
so that's
Pittsburgh
14 points that they've been able to accumulate. And so they accumulate a lot of their points through playing extra time and overtime and whatnot. So I think the Oilers will be able to hold on. I think I just look at that team. Their goaltending obviously has been questionable at best with Tristan Jarry when they acquired him. But I look at the Oilers. I do think they'll be able to hold on and get into the playoffs. It's the team that's behind the Golden Knights would be the Seattle Kraken, and the Kraken hold the other wild card spot, and they have 71 points. I don't really see a team that's going to be able to catch up to them within their division to really knock them out. Utah's kind of hovering, occupying that first wild card spot in the West, and they've got 76 points, but they're in the Central. So I think they'll be okay to kind of lock in. So as long as Seattle doesn't get hot and Edmonton just kind of stay a course because they still have McDavid and they can still, put up goals, I think they'll be okay to make it through. But it is going to be it is a tough loss losing Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, for sure. Are 5 games enough, too much, or too little for Radko Gudas?
Should have been more.
Yeah,
it should have been way more. Guy's got a history of it. I know his last suspension was before the pandemic, but he's had 4 previous suspensions in his NHL career. He's known as a player that's not afraid to get a little dirty whenever he's out on the ice. He had just injured your captain, who's making his return, Sidney Crosby, tonight as we're recording. He just injured him in the Olympics. And you just look at the contact that he made knee on knee with Austin Matthews. It'd be one thing if, you're colliding with somebody on the ice and you're like, oh, and you're trying to avoid it and you get into an incidental knee on knee. But it's the finish that Gudas had put in.
Seemed to have changed direction and a little bit of change of direction to kind of finish the quote unquote finish the hit. But I mean, such a dangerous position. And obviously you got to keep in consideration, I know they do, about the injury. And I mean, we all know Matthews is out for the rest of the season with a grade 3 MCL tear on the knee. Like, it's pretty serious injury to a pretty important player in the NHL, not just for the Maple Leaf, but he is one of the top guys in the NHL, one of the faces of the game maybe. And then I think all of these things fell together. I think you're right. I think 5 games, I wouldn't have been spitting on the fact that if they gave him 10 games, I'd be like, yeah, okay, 10 games. 10 games is fine. Or the rest of the regular season, whatever. That's a lot of games, mate. That's like 20 plus games. But 5 games seems not enough for me.
Yeah. There's the whole issue with the player personnel. You know who heads the committee in the NHL that looks at player safety? George Parros, who's a former enforcer in the league and was also a former Anaheim Duck. And so it makes it a little bit interesting. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And so
let's put our tinfoil hat on. We should have
that's right. Yeah. That's right. But it's a whole issue with the league when it's like, this is probably the most talented the NHL has been in terms of pure skill that's been out on the ice right now. And it's like, there's still kind of the old school mentality of having your enforcers go out there and like beat up on the star players. And then what are the justified suspensions? And one of the conspiracy theories that's out there is that Paris didn't want to assess anything more than 5, because if it's 6 games or more, then the NHLPA has to be involved in the decision as well. Like, there has to be consultation, and let's just avoid talking with the NHLPA. So it's a whole thing. It's very annoying. It should have been more, but as soon as you hear that it was going to be over the phone when they were talking about the hearing, that's instantly going to be at max 5 games. But it should have been more. And it's you just look at the play, it's a bad hit. Yeah. And it's not something that should be in the game. And if you're a star player, like this is a league that thrives on star power, having those guys like a Connor McDavid and an Austin Matthews out on the ice, like, this is something that they should be addressing. And it's again part of a bigger issue with the NHL with how they treat their star players right now.
Yeah, I agree. Should have been more. Let's talk about your Sens. Will the Sens make the playoffs? They're on the outside looking in right now, 2 points back from a wild card, I believe.
They are 5 points away from a wild card spot. It is again part of the weird system.
Yeah.
So they were at 1 point 2 points. But they took some time away from the last game, and it's one of those weird deals. It's like right now, if you're a Sens fan, you're just scoreboard watching because you're keeping an eye on these Bruins games, you're keeping an eye on these Red Wings games, and you're keeping an eye on the Blue Jackets.
Hey, the Bruins lost last night. Montreal beat them.
So I was it was an overtime loss though, so they still got the point, and so it's like, of course they still get their point, but so with the Sens, they've been on a really good run here over the last little bit. They've been 7-1-2 over the last 10, and so they've been on a good run. I think it's a good hockey team. I know, I think it's a good hockey team. Whenever I watch them, it like every team, it has its weaknesses. Goaltending continues to be
goaltending seems to be the issue, right? Same thing with Montreal. It feels like them and Montreal are kind of in the same boat. A lot of young players, a lot of guys that can play, but the goaltending is inconsistent, and it costs them a lot of games.
Yep. And it's just, I've been seeing it in the game against Montreal last week, where it was like, I'm like, that was what Allmark had been fine. You had saw some stuff being like, oh, look at the stats. He's got this goals against, and he's got this save percentage. It's like, well, if you watch these games, he's not exactly getting all these high percentage shots on him. And so I'm not saying anybody could have gone in there and won those games, because at the end of the day, Allmark needs to just be in the net, stop the puck and all that.
Right.
But the way that the Sens play their system, they're a very defensive minded team. And so they're very good at limiting shots. And that's what's helped with their recent stretch of wins that they've been on. So right now for the Sens, they have to make up for some of the key games that they lost back in. That's why they say like October, November, doesn't matter if it's the start of the season, because it will come back to bite you now. And that's what's happening with the Sens right now, is that it's coming back to bite them. It's just right now for the Sens, they've been winning, but they've just not been having the fortune of the scoreboard going their way, because Boston has still been putting up points and Detroit has still been putting up points, and Columbus is another team that's also gotten hot. And so right now, as we're talking, they're about 5 points away. They're playing Washington tonight. And so we'll see what happens at the end of the game for that one. But yeah, right now it's I want to believe that they can get in. Trust me, that's a team that I still think is a very good hockey team. And if we were in the other system, they would be in the playoffs, and I wouldn't even be sweating. But because we're in this system right now, as like this is where it's at. So if they can continue their play, and Allmark and James Reimer is the backup in Ottawa, like if they can play solid enough, like literally the analytics say that if they have bang average goaltending, save percentage wise, they can win games because of how that team is played. So it's tough. I obviously, as a Sens fan, you want to see it, but you just have to see where that scoreboard goes at the end of the day, and it's just not been going in their favor.
Yeah, I think they'll win more games that they'll lose for the rest of the season, but I think they might not get the luck of the scoreboard from the other games,
No.
So because a lot of teams battling for those last wild card spots, in the East.
You just have to look and see if one of these teams just goes on a losing streak. And I at the risk of throwing some bad mojo out there, you can't rule out the Sens also getting into a bad streak, because they're hot right now, and if a team figures it out, like, it gets tough to come back on that horse. So
let's move on to some NFL rapid fire questions. Let's start with the Miami Dolphins. Do you expect the Dolphins to put together a competitive team this upcoming season? Now, if you haven't been paying attention to what's going on, by the way, apparently Miami got rid of all of them.
Yeah.
Right? The only guy left is Achane, their running back. They got rid of Waddle. They got rid of Tua. They got rid of, obviously, Tyreek Hill. They got rid of all their guys. They brought in Malik Willis, which I'm like, all right, good, maybe. But I'll shoot it back at you. Do you expect the Dolphins to put together a competitive team this upcoming season, or is this in complete rebuild mode?
This screams rebuild to me.
Right? Like,
you're not winning games with Jalen Tolbert. Let me just tell you that right now. Like, it's just, Malik Willis, it's a great story, with him in terms of being able to go to Green Bay and put up a great showing for himself with Jordan Love out of the lineup. And so being able to go out and get that big contract.
But can you imagine working this hard to this guy was drafted in the first round by the Titans. Yep. It's a great prospect. You go through all this turmoil, get traded or sign with another team. Then last year, you get to show how good of a quarterback you really are in 2 or 3 games with the Packers as a backup. You get all these offers properly, and you go to Miami, and then you get there, and they fucking get rid of everybody. And then you're like, wow. Like, how do you think that guy, unless they told him, like, listen, we're gonna bring you in, but like we're getting rid of all of them. We're starting fresh. And he said, yeah, no problem. But if he wasn't privy to this information and then he shows up the Dolphins, he's like, I can't wait. I got Jalen Waddle and I got David H. And then everybody's gone. And you're like, what's going on? I think that's a bit of a kick in the nuts, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really does seem like it. But you look at what they've been able to accumulate in terms of draft picks this year, like obviously that Jalen Waddle trade, seeing him go for a first round pick. I mean, I like Jalen Waddle.
Right.
I did not, even with it being the 30th pick.
Right.
That's a pretty high price to pay for Jalen. But in the case of Denver, they're a team that can afford that risk because they're a team that went to the AFC Championship. It's like, all right. Now we got to stock around Bo Nix. And once you got a quarterback on a rookie contract and that you could do stuff with, especially when it's brought you to the AFC Championship game, you load up right away on all the other positions before you pay at quarterback, because that's when you're like, okay, our window is here. So that's what they're doing with the Jalen Waddle pick, or the Jalen Waddle trade, I should say. But I mean, if I'm Miami, like I look at the way that the roster is constructed, I'm like, this is not like all the players that they got rid of and the players that they brought in. This is clearly a team that is getting set for not this year's NFL draft, but next year's NFL draft.
Right.
And tanking for some of the high-level QB prospects that are expected to make their way in next year's draft. So I think it's one of those deals where it seems like Malik Willis, it's like, all right, we'll give you the money. Like, you earned this, like you showed out, and we're going to make you the starter. But it's also kind of setting up for when eventually, with the way that this roster is constructed, Malik Willis is probably not being set up for much success here.
Right.
And then it gives them a reason to be like, okay, well, now we have to go get our franchise quarterback through the draft and whatnot. So I have a tough time believing it unless like through the power of friendship, the Miami Dolphins are able to come together and win their division. But you look at the Bills and the Patriots in this division.
You got to look at the division they play in as well. You're like, shit, like you're getting rid of all your star players, and you're also going to have to play against the Patriots, the Bills, and all this. So you're like, shit.
Twice. Twice. So that's 4 games right there. You got to take on those teams. It's like, that's tough as it is. So.
Yeah. Who will AJ Brown play for come week 1 of the NFL season?
Feels like as the weeks kind of go on, it's kind of funny he's just still there.
Right. Like is he not traded yet? Like every Friday I check, I'm like, has he got traded this week?
Yeah. I saw, the little notification that pops up on your phone and you're like, oh, and they signed Hollywood Brown today to the Eagles did. And I saw Brown Eagles. I was like, oh, they finally traded. Oh, no, they signed Hollywood Brown. Oh, never
another
mind.
Brown.
They found another receiver with a last name Brown and brought him into the team. As the weeks kind of go on, the Broncos got their guy in Jalen Waddle. It seems like everything's lining up for it eventually to be the New England Patriots to kind of bring him in and be the number 1 option. And it was interesting. There were some rumors about the Rams circulating, which I thought was a very interesting team.
Right.
That they were willing to move on from Devontae Adams and bring in AJ Brown,
especially with the season Adams had last year. Like,
it's pretty. The thing would be, it's like Adams is the older receiver. They're probably thinking, okay, we got the maximum out of him, so we're gonna bring in AJ Brown and pair him up with Puka Nacua, and like we're gonna try and do that. So it's very interesting because the Rams are very much also in a win now mode, right? For as long as Matthew Stafford can still stand up and play football, like they're going to try and maximize that to their fullest. So that was an interesting team, but it feels like as the weeks go on, the Rams are kind of pulling back away. The Broncos are no longer in it. I like the Patriots just become much of a stronger option. Unless, the Ravens decide to do another trade. It's like, remember Max, just ignore the Max Crosby stuff.
Yeah.
We'll do this trade. We promise we'll go through on this trade this time.
Yeah.
We promise,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. You can't convince me, by the way, that that was not a back out of they realized what they were getting into. It's like, okay, no, we don't want to do this. It's like, oh, well, he's dealing with an injury. You guys knew that when you put the trade together.
Everybody knew that.
So
he said that he said when he walked into the Ravens place when he visited that something felt off, and then that same day they took the deal back. I think it was already decided before he even showed up that they were
and then immediately going after Trey Hendrickson and signing him to a contract is like, that was clearly a team that was like, all right, we're going to
try to sign both players. Yeah, for sure you were. Sure.
Sure, Baltimore.
Like, who are you?
But in the case of AJ Brown, it feels like the Patriots become stronger and stronger each day. I can't really think of another team that would be willing to take on AJ Brown that's in a win now state, unless somehow the Chiefs decide to put something together and they bring him in. It feels like it's the Patriots the more the weeks go on.
Can the Vikings? I'm not even saying that he will be QB1 come week 1, but I am assuming he will beat out JJ McCarthy. Can the Vikings win with Kyler Murray as their QB1?
He is such an interesting signing for the Vikings because he's not your typical signing or quarterback that the Vikings usually bring in. Like you look at how Sam Darnold thrived in the system. Case Keenum many years ago thrived in the system. He's obviously smaller, more on the mobile side of things. But it's a very interesting signing. If I recall correctly, the contract that they signed him to is a really very team friendly deal.
Yes,
a 1 year, $1.3 million contract. That's essentially just a prove it deal, right? And so I if you're bringing in Kyler Murray, I think the upside is still there. I still think he's a talented quarterback.
I think he's better than JJ McCarthy.
I definitely think he's better than JJ McCarthy. This is at least a quarterback you're bringing in Minnesota that's challenging JJ McCarthy at camp.
Right.
And just saying, hey, look, we want to win here. This Vikings team, everywhere else, this is a team that's built to go far in the playoffs.
Yes.
And they just have not been able to do so. And so we'll see with Kyler Murray. Again, he's a very different quarterback than what they usually get. Smaller side, more mobile than the other quarterbacks. JJ McCarthy's a bit mobile, but that's not really what he's known for. He's one of those can be mobile, but he's more known for fitting into a system, like he did in Michigan. And so with Kyler Murray, I think with him, it's going to be a question of motivation because that was the big thing in Arizona is how motivated. Now it's tough to be motivated to play for the Arizona Cardinals nowadays. So I don't, it's like, oh, I'm a Cardinal. What have I really done over the last couple of years? But
nothing of that franchise screams confidence and championship pedigree. Nothing about that team.
No, the only time that they were ever close to achieving that status was when 38-year-old Kurt Warner was quarterback, and he was throwing to Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, and they lost to my Steelers in the Super Bowl.
That's right. You remember that? Antonio Holmes, the nice catch in the sideline.
You know what I remember more than that catch? James Harrison intercepting on the goal line and running it back. I was telling my son about that play, and the next day I saw something on TV about it, and on ESPN or on TSN, I forget what it was. And I was like, that's the play. That's the play. I just remember him running it back and screaming for oxygen when he was on the bench because he couldn't breathe. I was like, what? In my opinion, one of the greatest Super Bowl plays of all time. And in that game, you got the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest catch. That Santonio Holmes catch, Ben Roethlisberger to the corner of the end zone, tapping that was great. Great catch. Great football game. Does Tua have a shot at being QB1 by week 1 with the Falcons?
I think they're going to rely on Michael Penix Jr. even unless it's becomes so abundantly clear that it's Tua in training camp, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're going to rely and continue with Michael Penix Jr. because at this point, with the way that roster was managed, they really don't have much choice but to continue with Michael Penix Jr. And I think they'll start the season with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback. So I don't see it personally.
But do you see a situation where Penix is on a short leash? Like I think Falcons want to win. Yep. And if Penix can't provide that for the Falcons, I assume that that's why they brought in a guy that's ready to jump in to be the QB1 on the team. He might not start the season, but I believe there's going to be a short leash on Penix.
Yeah, I think because he's now in his third year.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to be like, okay, what do we have here in the guy after being in the system for so long? So I certainly could see that in that scenario where it's more of a short leash and it's like, all right, we're giving you the ball here, but you've got this amount of weeks to show that you could be our guy throughout the season. And Tua, again, it's one of those deals. Atlanta, I mean, we keep talking about it. The way that they just did their roster management, especially at the quarterback position, was just so weird and funky. It's like Kirk Cousins comes in, but then they draft Penix, and then Kirk didn't work out, and now we're going to bring in Tua. And I know it's more of a much friendlier deal because Miami essentially paying him to not play for them anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And so he's able to sign on a veteran's minimum contract or whatever in Atlanta, and so a chance for him to kind of show and take it to Miami. But yeah, I could see it in the first couple of weeks where it's like, all right, we know that Michael Penix Jr. is not going to be our guy. We're going to go with Tua. We're going to rely on him. Another left-handed quarterback, by the way, is kind of the rare QB room where it's full of left-handed quarterbacks.
Crazy.
And so just do a flip of the playbook, and there you go. That's your left-handed quarterback room. But yeah, no, I could see by like week 6 or whatnot that they start looking at a Tua. Tua's just such a weird player because it's like everybody talks about how accurate he is, which I know it's funny to say because of the last couple of seasons. But one of the things that when he was brought in is that he's very good at being precise with the ball. But last couple of years,
we haven't seen that
this
from
past
him.
Season. No, and I think the injuries have just been catching up to him and all that. And so, and plus he was in a system, like, I think, well, we're going to really see with Tua if he was just able to thrive in a Mike McDaniel system in the Shanahan style system, or if he's really that good of a quarterback and Miami got it all wrong or whatever. So that'll be interesting. I still think Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the starter heading into week 1, and he'll have a couple of weeks to prove himself, but Tua will be lurking. And it's pretty clear that they're like, okay, we're going to see what we got here. And again, the expectation is that not this year, but next year's NFL draft is supposed to be pretty loaded in terms of quarterback talent, barring any of these QBs taking a massive step back next year, which you can't really rule out.
You're right.
But right now it's like, oh, there's a lot of stacked QB talent. Let's see what we got in these guys now. And if we don't have it, then we'll just go into the draft and try and get a QB there. So,
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the NBA, a rare occasion here on Blue Collar Sport. Last week, we saw Bam Adebayo score 83 points in a basketball game, the second most in NBA history. Now, I wrote down the question in a weird way. I don't think it's fair to Bam Adebayo that I asked if the 83-point game is legit. So I will ask it in a different way. Is it fair to criticize this 83-point game from Bam Adebayo?
Yes, I think it's absolutely fair to. I think I've always been somebody that says, two things can be true. You could acknowledge the accomplishment of Bam Adebayo's game. Like, can't take it away from him. He went out there, he scored the 83 points.
Yep.
We all saw it, but I can criticize how it got to that point.
Absolutely.
And I think it is a bit of a joke. If you watch that final quarter, it was pretty clear. It's like, oh, Bam's at 60. Like, let's see if we can, get a couple more points for him and have him go up I mean,
the free throws were ridiculous.
Yes. Like, if I'm the NBA, I'm embarrassed at the amount of free throw attempts that I'm seeing with Bam Adebayo.
42 is too many free throws. Like, it's just too much. And the other things as well, right? The Wizards are one of the worst defensive team in the league.
Yep.
Plus, it was already a blowout by the halftime or by the third quarter. You keep him in the game, play him every minute till the end. Just keep padding that record, trying to get as much as possible. They just kept feeding him the ball. And I get it. You want him to get as much as he can. I mean, he scored like almost 40 in the first quarter. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
So I get it, but I will agree with you 100%. Two things can be true. Yes, he did score 83 points, but I'm going to criticize how he got them. And it's fair.
Yeah.
It's definitely fair.
It's something where you look at it, it's just like, you know, I'm not as like, oh, the teams, it's a historically bad defense on Washington or whatever. It's like, well, in that case, you just got to play the teams that are in front of you.
Yeah.
And if you're Bam Adebayo, I'm more of the, like, when they actually just go in there and just start, I don't want to say throwing it, but essentially be like, oh, we got to make sure, keep him out there and like, let's see if he gets the points. And it becomes a little bit more. That was the big thing in the NFL with Mark Gastineau. He filed the lawsuit against ESPN or whatnot about, there's the clip of him confronting Brett Favre about him bailing on the play for Michael Strahan's sack record. And Gastineau confronted Brett Favre and said, like, you like bailed on that last play so you could give Michael Strahan the sack record, and you took that away from me and all this stuff. Little crazy, because Mark Gastineau is a little bit of a character,
right? But he did have a point.
It's that. Yeah, but it is that same idea of it's like, oh, you just threw the game. It's like play 100% till the end. And so it'd be one thing if it's like, I wouldn't be as upset about it if it was just like nearing the end, they were playing hard, but it's like, you know what, 81 points, like let's give it to them or whatnot. It was like at the 60, 65 point mark where it was like, okay, we're getting close as a fourth quarter. There's a chance for him to put up all these points. So let's, you know, I just didn't love it. And again, I'm not going to take away from Bam Adebayo. He still has to make those shots at the end of the day, and he made those shots. Like, he still made those free throws, and he still made his field goals and whatnot. But I think the way that it went to it, I didn't think that. I don't want to say it wasn't legitimate like that, like what you were saying with the question there. It's just stuff where, if I'm the NBA, it's just when you're already in a scenario where you're talking about tanking in this league and you're trying to fix tanking.
We spoke
this
about
just
that,
makes it makes it even an even bigger spotlight in the NBA. So
absolutely not a good look. Last question about the NBA, and this is in relations to Giannis Antetokounmpo. Read something about the team. So I will ask you this question. Is it okay for a team to ask a star player to sit out the remainder of the season if they are dealing with injuries and they are basically out of the playoff chase? Is it okay?
Depends on the situation. I think if you've already clinched the playoffs and, you know, you're a few games out, really not going to affect your seeding, I think it's okay to say, hey, you're dealing with this injury, let's rest you. We see it in the NFL as another NFL comparison where it's like final week of the season, a lot of these teams, they've already clinched, there's really not much, and so they bench a lot of their players so that they can rest up so that they can play in the playoffs. In some cases, 2 weeks so that these players are fully rested when they get back out on the field. There is, though, the other example of, like, I'll throw in an NHL example. One of the big running memes in the NHL is that Mark Stone always goes on LTIR around the trade deadline time, and he's all of a sudden, like, he's dealing with an injury, and he's on the LTIR, and then it carries over in the playoffs, and the way that the rules are, now they changed it this year.
They did,
but
because of him.
But essentially because of him.
Yeah.
Because they could be technically over the cap, the way that the cap works in the NHL, but because he was on LTIR, they could use it like an exemption or whatnot, and he could play in the playoffs. And so they adjusted it where it's not as prominent, but it's still happening. Like, it just happened a few weeks ago where Mark Stone is back on LTIR, and he's not going to be playing for next little bit, probably not until the playoffs, and then all of a sudden he's back, he's healthy and ready to go. Like, oh, he looks like a new man out there.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. It's like, start resting your players. So there's the two different situations, right?
And think about Max Crosby last year with the Raiders.
Yep.
They asked, I mean, I don't know if they came out and said it, but it's pretty much known that they asked him to shut it down because they were also trying to tank. So that, I guess your point is like, if there's a situation that, if your team's in the playoff, valid reason. But if your team is teetering on the outside of the playoffs, and this might give them a better draft pick, then what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah. When it comes to like a better draft pick, I'm one of those guys that likes when teams play to win.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's the organizations like, oh, we tank for a better draft pick, but there's no guarantee the draft pick's going to be any good. Right. It's like I find it like with some teams, like you're the Jets, right? It's like, do you really want to tank again just so that your first round pick?
You got to try winning at a certain point.
You got to try winning at some point, right? Like that's all part of a winning culture. So, so I don't like that where it's like, if you take next couple of games, you're not in there, you're hurt, and we're thinking about you, but we're also thinking about our draft pick, but we're thinking about you, blah, blah, blah. And I don't love that. If it's a scenario where it's like playoffs, everything's settled, rest your players, I'm not going to be having an issue about that.
I agree with that.
I look at it from the competitive edge versus the non-competitive edge. If there is a competitive thing as part of it, where it's like you mentioned with draft picks and whatnot, that's when it starts for me being one of those, okay, like, what are we doing here? But if it's something like non-competitive where it's like, the team's already qualified for playoffs or whatnot, and really nothing changes if he's on or off, I have no problem with that.
Completely agree with you. Let's move on to a bit of WWE, and before we move on to the closing segment that we like to call Let's Rank Them. I got some good ones today. I'm
excited.
WWE quickly here. Complete this sentence, Zach. Next year at this time, Obafemi will be ...
Hopefully a champion of some sort. Preferably a world champion. We saw the angle with Brock Lesnar earlier this week.
Yeah.
I'm glad they're going forward with the Brock match. And don't let any of these people try and like wiggle their way out of it. Be like, oh, it's okay if Obafemi's in there and he loses to Brock.
No.
He's in there with a
You're
big
not
star.
putting him in there.
No. Don't wiggle out of this. This is one of those moments. There's certain wrestlers where you have to push him to a certain way.
Absolutely.
And in the case of Obafemi, he's like, I like Obafemi. I could see why people like him. He's, big guy, firmly in the WWE like look. And I haven't seen all of his matches, but I think he's solid enough where it's like, okay, let's see what we got. I think there's still some work to do, but you look, it's like, all right, there's a presentation there. There's a package there that you can work with Obafemi. What a way to establish a guy. I always say it on This Is Wrestling every week with Lieber Sage and I on your favorite podcast platform. Mick Foley, thumbs up like that. I say it every week. What better way to establish a guy than having him beat everybody or beat a big name you want to make a statement? Have him beat one of your top guys and say, okay, this is our guy. This is our statement maker. This is what we're going to do. Ironically enough, his opponent that he's facing at WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar, that's how he was able to make a name for himself.
Absolutely.
Because you know what? He was this big wrecking machine that beat everybody up and then won the title against The Rock, and everyone's like, oh, this is a big wrecking machine that's beating everybody up, and he's legitimate. And it's like, wow, it's a crazy concept.
And look at the career Brock Lesnar has had in the WWE since that moment, right?
Yeah. Like, and who knows if Obafemi is on that Brock Lesnar scale? Who knows? But you got to find out. Yeah. There's so many, all of wrestling right now, a lot of bookers that are passive when it comes to pushing a guy because there's this fear of failing with a lot of their wrestlers. Like, oh, we can't do it now because it doesn't have this, doesn't have that. But it's creating a lull in terms of star power and who's ascending up to the card. And you're creating stale cards so that when you finally think it's ready to go, it might be too late. sometimes you just got to push him now and see what happens.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're going to get the nerds like me that'll go on their little podcasts and say, oh, that didn't work. Why didn't they identify this talent better?
Right.
But you got to ignore nerds like me when it comes to that. You got to push some new talent and see what you can do. And if you think you've got somebody that could be a star, you got to go forward with them. And not every push is the same. There's some wrestlers, like I look to a Kyle Fletcher in AEW, the way that they're pushing him right now is different because it's much more elongated, but he's a guy that is such a good in-ring wrestler that he could back it up and you could, stall him a little bit. I don't think Obafemi is at that level of a Kyle Fletcher, but he's still somebody that you got to go in there and you got to establish him right away, and I hope he beats Brock at WrestleMania. So to answer your question, next year at this time, Obafemi will be, I'm saying hopefully some sort of world champion, because that would mean that they've established the guy as a top main event level guy, new name, new face, and he could be somebody that could headline one of your nights at WrestleMania next year, if it's in Saudi Arabia next year or not. So that's how I'm going to answer that question.
I think the perfect setup for him would be to win the King of the Ring next year.
Yep.
And then you can set him up from there, go forward into the world championship picture. Are you tired of Danhausen yet?
Getting close.
Like if they don't start doing something else with him than just these little vignettes with The Miz and other wrestlers, I love him right now. I'll admit. Right. I'm like, all right, bring him out for the t-shirts. He's funny.
Yep. The giant cannon,
it's funny. Yeah. And The Miz and the way the curse and all that, you are cursed. I get it. It's funny. The stick works, but you got to do more now. Now you got to get him more involved, and now you got to start bringing him out, not during the commercial breaks on Netflix to sell the t-shirts, but you got to start bringing him on TV a little bit more and kind of throwing storyline angle at him just so to bring out more out of him. But yeah, if they don't do that very soon, I'm gonna tune out real fast.
Yeah, I the thing with Danhausen, so I was somebody that likes Danhausen. I'm usually not the comedy wrestling guy. I'm your straight laced, boots in the mat, old school wrestling guy in some cases. But I like to have fun. That's why I do this podcast everywhere. Yeah. I'm a fun guy, I like to think. But so I don't mind the Danhausen, but it's with acts like that, they're on a certain part of the card. And in the case of Danhausen, to me, like he's more of a lower mid-card guy. And that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with being a guy that fills that role of the card. Guys look at R-Truth. He got like a 10, 15-year career out of being a lower mid-card guy in WWE, made a lot of money, to the point where then they cut him, they brought him back because people loved him. Right. Like, you know what? Good for him. He made a bunch of money, and he's continuing to make a bunch of money. And so, like, that could be happening with Danhausen here, where he could have a lengthy career. I'm worried it's going to get overexposed at some point. Like, you can only put so much focus on a character like Danhausen for so long, where you're like, okay, he's a focal point, but what are we actually doing with this character?
Right.
And so we'll see with the in-ring. I think he's somebody that you beat him up, like a heel beats him up, and you get the sympathy, and then somebody stands up for Danhausen. I think that's the way to work with him in terms of his character. But it's not annoying for me yet. I am somebody that has a shorter leash when it comes to that sort of stuff. So my tolerance is already starting to slow a little bit more. But I will say, when we initially reviewed the debut, Lee and I, on at Elimination Chamber, I was literally in tears with laughter of just how bad it kind of got executed. Mainly because of the smoke and then all the crowd booing after the
I'm
smoke.
surprised he got over so much since that moment, because that was a disaster.
Exactly. He's turning around. Like, I can't, like...
He made fun of it. The first night he went on TV, he made fun of it.
Yeah. I think we talked about it at the time. It's it's like the crowd's already doing the "you are cursed" thing. So it's like they've turned it around with him. So I've got to give him credit where it's due. I do think there is going to be an exposure thing with him, because it's like you can only do it so many times, where you do the same joke over and over and over and over again, when people are like, all right, like, let's do something new now here. So.
Absolutely. Last question for WWE. Who will Gunther face at WrestleMania?
I don't know. I want to give you a definitive answer.
It's some. I just wrote it down because I was like, I need another question. Only 2 questions. We need something else. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, wait a minute. All this thing with Gunther retiring AJ Styles, and all of a sudden, like, whoa, what happened? Like, who's he facing at WrestleMania? They're setting up all these different matches, and I'm like, I haven't heard about Gunther in a couple of weeks now. So I was just curious. I'm like, maybe I'll ask Zach, but yeah, I'm like you. I have no idea where they're going with this.
There was some talk that maybe it would be Rey Mysterio, which I could see. It feels very much like a filler in between.
Right.
You would think somebody that retired. I know he didn't technically retire John Cena. I have a buddy that's been a stickler about that. You didn't retire John Cena. He was already going to retire. You just beat him to a like he's very like stickler on that. I'm like, I guess you're correct on that stance, but he's somebody who like made him lose in his final match, and that's where the heat is. And he's retired AJ Styles and all this stuff, right?
I just hope it's not him versus the Dragon Lee.
Yeah, I mean that would just be any other promotion. I'd be like, let's go. But the way that they're pushed right now in WWE, it's like
it would be a good match. But I just for WrestleMania, it's more of a Monday Night Raw.
The way that they're pushed, and yeah, exactly. The way that they're pushed, and like to me, this is just an indictment of this booking team of not having any idea of what they're doing with one of the guys that they were really pushing hard. And it's like,
it's like they fit a wall. Like, oh shit, we didn't think about WrestleMania. I think they were thinking so much ahead because there's rumors that he might retire Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. I'm sure you've heard of it, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think they might just be looking ahead, and then they went, oh shit, like what are we gonna do for WrestleMania? Like there's no leap in the storyline here. There's no connection. Like,
yeah,
it's gonna be weird.
If it's Jey Uso again, I might just quit professional wrestling altogether and just leave the business.
Yeah,
so
I get it.
I might be out.
So we don't know. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's close this episode with another segment of Let's Rank Them. I wish I had a song for it. I'm going to come up with a little intro song for this. Little catchy jingle for this segment that I like to call Let's Rank Them. What is Let's Rank Them? Well, I randomly pick 3 athletes from all 4 major sports for now. And we ask the questions. Are they top 5, top 10, top 20, or top 50? Pretty simple, you think.
Yep.
But then there's a lot of debate sometimes. And the last episode, we picked 3 names that I think all landed in around the top 15 to top 20 for all 3. Yep. So we'll try to get some better guys or some different arguments going this year. So let's start. I got the 3 names already picked. So we'll start with this. Let's rank them. Where would you rank Mike Bossy?
Mike Bossy. Okay. I'm trying to think. I was not expecting Mike Bossy to pop up in this chat. Big part of the Islanders dynasties of the early 80s. Man, that's a great question.
Because he was one of the most natural goal scorer that the NHL has ever seen. Career cut short absolutely. Because of injuries, but multiple time 50 goal scorer in the 80s. Like led the Islanders to 4 Stanley Cups. So I mean,
consecutive Stanley Cups.
Right, it's crazy, right? Something. Considering the teams that were in the 80s, the Oilers, the Canadians, like holy shit, like. And the Islanders just 4 years in a row, bang, 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 bang. Like, whoa. Like, yeah. So where would you put him, Mike Bossy? Number 1, is he a top 50 player?
Oh, yeah, right. Absolutely.
So we're
definitely a top 50 player. That's easily a top 50 player. Like what you mentioned, just a pure goal scorer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of like if you want to go on some pure goal scoring abilities, he would easily be in at least the top 10.
Absolutely.
Easily at least in the top 10. Man, like Ovechkin would be 1 as a pure goal scorer. I don't know if that's a hot take now, but
Ovechkin, Lemieux,
Gretzky, obviously, Lemieux,
right? Gretzky, Jagger.
Yager, yeah. I'm just thinking of like pure goal scorers, like guys that just like guys that just came in and just scored a bunch of goals. Um, man, I'm hovering around like top 15 with Mike Bossy.
Yeah.
I know we were saying top
Yeah.
15, top 20, but it's like the thing with the thing with him is that like, man, he's I've not been. I've only seen Mike Bossy through highlights, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't say like I was there when watching these Islanders games and I knew how good Mike Bossy was. I'm just kind of taking in outside information on Mike Bossy.
He scored
I'm just
9 straight 50-plus goal season to start his career.
yeah,
Scored 573 goals in 752 games. That's 0.76 goals per game. I mean, come on. That's almost like, if you look just at those numbers, you'd be like, yeah, he's a top 10 player.
yeah, easily,
Right.
easily. Yeah, he's an all-time. He is absolutely an all-time great. The more that we're talking about him, the more I'm like, yeah, maybe even put him in the top 10.
160 points in 129 playoff games. That's, when he not only won those Stanley Cups 4 straight, but he led those teams to those Stanley Cups.
Yep.
Very clutch player as well. Like big goals, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like if you compare him to like peak Gretzky, peak Lemieux, peak Bobby Orr, like he's like almost in the same conversation.
Yeah, and Bobby Orr is more of an interesting one because he was a defenseman,
right?
But he had just a flair for goal scoring from the defensive position.
The way he could skate was insane, Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I'm hovering around that top 10, top 15, probably around that top 10.
Yeah.
The thing with him, it's like there's a lot of like, it's weird to say because it's like you look at the numbers, right? But in terms of hockey's more than just scoring goals. Obviously, it helps when you score a lot of goals.
Yeah.
Like the thing with Wayne Gretzky, why they call him the best is because he's like one of the best all around hockey players they've ever seen. Like he could score goals and he could also pass, and he also a great skater,
right?
And he was great on the like all these different things. It's same with like a guy like Gordie Howe, right? Where it's like Gordie Howe could score, he could also, was great playmaker, but he was also like physical. Like they created the Gordie Howe hat trick after having a goal and assist and a fight, So like in terms of all around players, like I think there are better all around players than Mike Bossy. Because you look at that, you look at the assists for him, like it's the same level of assists. Like usually you see with that a guy that like takes over a game, like a Gretzky. You saw Gretzky just pile up on assists too. So, but boy, like if I want somebody that could score me a goal in a key situation, Mike Bossy would absolutely be in that conversation.
Yeah, I have him like you. I think like maybe like in the 12th, 13th position. I'd be willing to go in between top 10 and top 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
He's, just again, pure goal scorer. But it's interesting that Islanders franchise where just some of the players that have gone through, it's like, it's funny because like with Bossy, like some argue he's not even the best player to play for the Islanders. Some argue it's Denny Potvin.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, like, oh man. And certainly for the defensive position, it's like I think Denny Potvin absolutely is in that. So it's like that's why I'm hovering, because it's like I'm trying not to get too encapsulated with the goal scoring, because like obviously great feat, and you got to acknowledge that when it comes to greatest hockey players of all time. So I'm gonna say I'm hovering around that top 10, top 15, because Potvin has to be in there.
Yeah.
Or Gretzky, Lemieux, Sidney Crosby.
Yeah.
I think belongs in that.
Absolutely.
I think Ovechkin belongs in that. Yeah.
There's a lot of.
That's where I'm hovering.
I think it's good. I think we'll see how the listeners react. Maybe they'll have something to say. If you have something to say on where you would rank Mike Bossy and the all-time NHL players, drop a comment or send us. We're available, like I said, Instagram at Savage Paulson. Check out Blue Collar Sports as well. Send us your thoughts on where you would rank Mike Bossy as a top NHL player. Second name on the list, Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw. We're going like late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah,
here?
I'm like, all right.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, let's rank him. Like, he's won 4 championships with the Steelers.
Yeah.
Like, is he a top 10 quarterback of all time?
No.
I
can think of, in terms of pure passers, I think I could think of a bunch that were better than Terry Bradshaw. And I think Terry Bradshaw would even say that too.
Absolutely.
So
top 20?
The thing with I would have to think about it. If we're just looking at QBs.
Okay, let's establish, is he a top 50 NFL all-time player?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No, I don't like.
Interesting.
I don't think he's a top 50. I don't think he's a top 50 overall NFL player. I think sometimes when you look at a guy's stats, like I always say this with like a Joe Namath or a Terry Bradshaw or even Troy Aikman.
Mm-hmm.
You look at their stats, you're like, oh, this is a Hall of Fame quarterback. It's like, no, you got to see the era that they played in and what they were able to do in those situations. Like you look at Troy Aikman's numbers and you're like, oh, like, how is he a Hall of Famer? But like, again, funny enough, talking about Tua earlier in terms of how, players rave about how accurate he can be. Like Troy Aikman was somebody who's like, they always compliment about how he was able to just be so precise with his throws and just the perfect ball placement at the right time in key situations. And somebody like Joe Namath, where you look at, he's got more interceptions than touchdowns in his career, but that was a style where the passing game wasn't as like fully developed as it is now.
That's
right.
True.
So
that's true.
And like pass interference now is like a regular play in the NFL during that time. So having said all of that, like he's obviously got the Super Bowls.
Right.
But I mean, Terry Bradshaw wasn't even like the best player on his team. Like when he played, like a bunch of players on the Steelers were better players than he was, I thought.
So you're saying they didn't win those championships because of him?
See, now that's an interesting question that you have put me in.
Because I'm not disagreeing with you. I threw him out there, this name, because I knew that this was going to be one of those guys that you're going to have to argue if he's one of the top 50 NFL players of all time, because we've seen a lot of great NFL players. So
I'm having a tough time in just of overall NFL players. I'm really having a tough time seeing Terry Bradshaw in that top 50. I think he's you can make an argument for top 100. But like you look at the quarterbacks, like I can think of a bunch of quarterbacks that I would take over Terry Bradshaw. Like Brady, Manning, Breeze, Montana. I would take Roger Staubach over him. And that was if you take in the 70s, Roger Staubach, I think, was the better quarterback than Terry Bradshaw.
Yes.
I would take Dan Marino. I would take Steve Young over Terry Bradshaw, prime Steve Young. I would take Aaron Rodgers. This is all just off the top of my head. So I would pick this might be a controversial one. I would pick Aikman over Bradshaw. But I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback either.
Right.
Troy Aikman. So try to think of other quarterbacks where I'm like, I would pick over Terry Bradshaw. This is all off of memory here of all the great quarterbacks that have played in the NFL.
Right. Okay, let's pin that down. Is he the best Steelers quarterback?
I think Ben Roethlisberger is the better quarterback.
I think so too.
Yeah. I would pick Big Ben over him. And I also think Terry Bradshaw would agree with that. I don't see him as a top 50 player, just overall player, because I think there are a bunch of different players at a bunch of different positions that like.
I think I thought he was between 40 and 50. I would have put him in,
Mm-hmm.
but now that you talked me out of it, I think he's not even in the top 50 now that I think about it.
Brett Favre is
Right.
another one
Right.
that just popped in my head.
Peyton Manning.
John Elway.
I'm sure he's put Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I mentioned Peyton Manning. Warren Moon I would pick over Terry Bradshaw.
Hard to argue against. I mean,
Patrick Mahomes, I would argue. I would
oh,
take
there's
over
absolutely
him.
there's
Josh Allen.
There's quarterbacks
Lamar
right
Jackson.
now. Okay, we'll agree. Out of the top 50, Terry Bradshaw, get out of here.
I know this is hurting you there, Stefan, because he's a Steelers quarterback, and it's like
he's not my favorite Steelers quarterback. I'll just leave it at that.
There you go.
Last but not least, this one I just changed it because I realized I had 2 hockey guys, so I'm gonna keep the other hockey guy for the next episode of Let's Rank Them, because this one, the hockey guy I think might be debatable, but I'll give you a baseball guy. Let's rank him. Ricky Henderson. Ricky Henderson.
I was gonna say
Ricky Henderson. My French there kicked in a little bit. My
Ricky Anderson. I was like, who's Ricky Anderson?
Ricky Henderson.
I was like scrambling to look. I was like, who's this? I don't know who this is. Oh no. Oh yeah, Ricky Henderson. I mean, what an awesome baseball player he was. Best base stealer easily of all time. Not even close when it comes to base stealing. I'm just looking up his stats here. 3-time Silver Slugger. Won the MVP. He's also part of that Toronto Blue Jays World Series.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, he's definitely in the conversation of top 50 in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. Do you put him in the top 20?
See, the thing with baseball, it's like, because there's such a long history with baseball.
There's so many guys you got to look at. Yeah.
So many guys that you could like look at. And so it's like
I'll give you an example. Would you rate him higher than a guy like Tony Gwynn?
I would say yes, personally.
Right.
But that is a
is he a better player than Alex Rodriguez?
No.
Right.
No. I wouldn't say he was a better player. Tony Gwynn. Like, I'm thinking more about Tony Gwynn, like
Ken Griffey Jr.
I would pick Ken Griffey Jr. every day of the week. Twice on Sunday.
Derek Jeter.
A healthy Ken Griffey Jr.? Absolutely.
Right. Like Chipper Jones. Would you put Chipper Jones ahead of him? No.
I like Chipper Jones, but not that much.
How about Suzuki? Ichiro Suzuki, would you? Ichiro.
I would want Ichiro over Ricky Henderson just because I know I'm going to get on base. With Ichiro at bat.
There's so many players that you could go, okay, he's better than Ricky. Oh, he's bigger than Ricky. He's better than Ricky. Yeah. But then you could do that for 25 players, and then Ricky's not in the top 25 anymore. Well, I think he's a top 25 player. I think he's.
I'm willing to say top 25 because not only just when it comes to speed, but again, he was a Silver Slugger. He was not a bad hitter.
Oh, absolutely. A leadoff hitter.
He was able to get on base for a reason, right? He was able to get there for a reason.
He didn't steal all those bases because he had all those walks, though.
Yeah, no. It wasn't because of waiting, just great selection on pitches and having a good eye at the plate. No, I mean, he was somebody that I'm hovering around that top 25 because it's you start thinking about your Babe Ruths and your Barry Bonds.
Joe DiMaggio. Would you put him before Joe DiMaggio, right?
Smoking Joe. Let's see what he could do.
Lou Gehrig. You get all these guys. Yeah. I mean, the top 10 is almost all guys except for Barry Bonds, maybe. Yeah. There's it's all guys from the 50s, 40s, like Mickey Mantle, Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Willie Mays, Ted Williams. Now, I mean, you're starting to rattle off all these names. It pushes Ricky Henderson down the list. I definitely think he's a top 50, even top 30, but it's hard to put him in the top 20. I would put him anywhere between 20 and 25. I would be comfortable putting him in that slot for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at some of the names here. It's like it's interesting. I see some of these lists. I don't know if it's cheating to look at these
Oh
lists.
yeah, I've been looking,
like,
but they don't make sense a lot, some of them.
Like some of them I'm like, I see him in top 10 and some of them I'm like, I don't think he was a top 10 player. And then I see some where it's like he's like not even listed. It's like, well, I don't think he wasn't a top 50 player.
Right.
Like
He's definitely a top 50 player. Like
he's absolutely a top 50 player.
According to
like, you can't have somebody with that.
Yeah.
When somebody that changed the way like a certain element of the game is played, like that has to be recognized at some shape or fashion.
Right.
I could see, I've seen some lists having him in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure I can hear an argument for it. It's what I feel most comfortable though.
Right.
And you have to like sit back and you have to think about it, and you have to, again, with baseball, there's such a rich history.
It's hard
with it.
There's so many guys that have played the game.
So tough.
Yeah.
Like with even like, that's the big thing with a lot of these leagues. Like with the NFL, there's also a bit of a lengthier history, but it's also the style of play, right? Like, I don't want to be one of those guys like when they talk about basketball where it's like, oh, the 60s was all just a bunch of plumbers playing basketball. Like, I don't want to be that guy, but like baseball in the 1950s was very difficult because there were certain pitches that are not allowed,
right,
or the way that they would like cover up the ball. Mm-hmm. So when these hitters are going up and hitting the ball, it's even more impressive because of the tactics that some of the pitchers are using. Mm-hmm. So that's why you have some of these guys from the 50s and 60s being so high up, because it's astronomical that they're able to put up these numbers with how many challenges were against them.
Right.
And so, but in the case of football, like it's very different with the padding and like how much more athletic the modern football player is compared to a football player from the 1960s. Yeah. Like they're not hitting up the bar at like, 12 o'clock at night and then getting ready for their football game, 12 hours later or whatever.
They're not going out partying the night before the Super Bowl. And then playing the biggest game of their lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I get
not
it.
The 86 Mets. Yeah. So it's interesting. I can hear so many arguments for it. It's just all over the place, but I feel comfortable saying top 25.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like pitchers too. And I'm like,
again, it's hard when it comes to baseball. It really is like,
You got me. I'm liking this segment because you got me sitting back and you got me thinking.
It's
and I'm
fun
like,
because it makes you think of all these other players. They're like, hey, can I put that guy in front of him? Maybe or maybe not. Like it just, that's why I love it so much. But yeah, I'll go with you. I'm gonna stick with in between. I'll put him at like 22, 23.
22. How about
We're
that?
Good. Ricky Henderson, top 25. Zach, this was fun. I know we've been busy and we've skipped a couple of weeks, but this was fun. Thanks again for taking the time and coming on and discussing sports with me here at Blue Collar Sports. I appreciate you.
No, I appreciate you, man. I'm always whenever we get the time, and this is now one of those parts of the year where it's like, oh, we're all doing stuff, and so I can't wait for like April, May, because that's when it starts to slow down a little bit. Yeah. But we're right in the thick of it here when it comes to everything going on. So it's nice to just kind of step away from that, come on here, and then just being able to shoot the shit with you about sports and just, talking everything going on in the world of sports. So it's always a good time. Always happy to be able to come on and chat with you for about an hour and a half. So.
Awesome, Zach. Thanks again to all the listeners that have subscribed to Blue Collar Sports and that are listening right now. We appreciate you. And without you, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you. Again, Blue Collar Sports, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Check it out. Subscribe today so you don't miss any future episode. That's it for season 2, episode 22 or 21? No, 22. Yeah, we're up season 22.
21, 22?
22.
Wow.
We've done 22 episodes.
Of this season alone.
Yeah. Last year we did I think we did 10 or 11. We didn't do many, but we're at 22 now. So I'm happy.
Double.
Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome. Love it.
I like it.
We still more to come before the summer break. So hopefully we can find some time in coming weeks to record another episode of Blue Collar Sports. But if you've been listening, so up to this point. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Blue Collar Sports.